Big news in special counsel Jack Smith's criminal investigation of Donald Trump. 3 of Donald Trump's lawyers met for 2 hours on Monday with special counsel Jack Smith and Jack Smith's team at the Department of Justice offices. Special counsel Jack Smith was present at that meeting. Donald Trump responded by whining and complaining how unfair it is that he may get criminally charged. These messages look almost identical to the post that he made right before he was charged by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. This, as more news broke about potential obstructive conduct that took place at Mar-a-Lago back in October of 2022, when a maintenance worker, the same worker who moved classified record boxes before June 3rd of 2022, well, this maintenance worker apparently drained the Mar-a-Lago pool into the office where surveillance footage was being stored in October of 2022, raising the suspicion, and rightfully so, of special counsel Jack Smith's team. But the hits don't end there. We also learned that in addition to the criminal grand juries currently impaneled in Washington, D.C., there has been another criminal grand jury, which we have not been discussing and that we did not know about before today, impaneled in Florida, investigating crimes that took place at Mar-a-Lago, likely with respect to the staff at Mar-a-Lago. Let's break down the implications of all of this. And are there any serious Republicans anymore? I mean, seriously, it's a bit of a rhetorical question because there isn't. Just look at what's taken place over the last few days. I mean, on Monday, you got MAGA Republican James Comer, who chairs the House Oversight Committee, said that even though he saw this supposed document at issue, Republicans were going to start contempt proceedings against the Republican FBI director, Christopher Wray, because he would not actually physically turn over this document. This is a complaint form made by an individual linked to Vladimir Putin that defames President Biden. Also, you got MAGA Republican Ken Buck saying that Trump being investigated for crimes helps Trump. It makes him more credible in the eyes of MAGA Republicans. You got MAGA Republican Anna Paulina Luna, if that's even really her name, says that she is going to seek to fine Democratic Congress member Adam Schiff $16 million. Seriously, guys, they all have like made up names and aliases. Like they're not even like the real people they claim to be. You've got MAGA presidential candidate Nikki Haley. She held a so-called town hall meeting with CNN where she expressed positions of like a genocidal fascist. You've got Republicans partying at a New Jersey mansion to rally around an indicted Chinese con artist and purveyor of dangerous conspiracy theories, Miles Guo, at the new federal state of China's 3rd anniversary event, where George Santos was one of the guests of honor. I mean, they've lost their minds. Like, it is pure madness. It is fascism meets idiocracy. Meanwhile, in the land of normalcy, President Biden secured a jobs report for the month of May that surged past expectations. The U.S. added 339,000 new jobs, surging past the 190,000 expected. That's more than 13 million jobs since President Biden took office. Look, folks, that's the stuff we want to talk about here. Jobs and healthcare and Social Security and equality. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Brett and Jordy, how are you doing today?
And that's the MeidasTouch Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for a fantastic show. And that's enough news, I think, for like 2 weeks of podcasts. That's unbelievable, just watching everything that happened today. The hitch just kept coming. And you really realize, and we bring this up all the time, that the media cannot treat this as a normal political party, that being the Republican Party. This is really a criminal enterprise that is operating in plain sight, and they do nothing to even hide it. They are just basically going out there screaming, yes, we're criminals, and anybody else who gets indicted, you're with us, and we're going to defend your criminality, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep criming and have a bunch of criminal parties. It's a really, really bizarre thing, especially when it's so thrown in your face in this way. Like they used to try to hide it a little bit, and then there'd be a leak about like a text or a tape or something like that. Now it's just every day. Now it's just they're out. They go on like TV and they announce it to all their followers. But it's getting pretty crazy. We got to break it all down. So I'm not going to yap on too much. Jordy, what's new today? How you doing?
I'm doing well. What Ben was saying, it just sounds like fascist Mad Libs. It is wild when he does those intros. And I could always gauge like how good of an episode we're going to have when Ben does the intro. And I've noticed the slower Ben goes at the onset, the better the episode's going to be. So I'm stoked.
It's that suspense voice that Ben puts on. You know, he
builds he's ready. It up. Buckle up, folks. We're strap in. Here we go.
I'm trying to process the words that I'm actually saying. Like, I know the words because I wrote them, right? I know the words because I've read these stories and I've talked about them and I've done other videos on them. But when you kind of put them all together like that, sometimes I'm actually thinking to myself as I'm reading those intros, like, how is this actually happening? How is this actually? That explains the delay sometimes and the slow, because I'm going through that process.
Imagine reading that intro to yourself, like from 2015 or something, and being like, "This is going to be one day of news in 2023." You'd be like, "What the heck happened?" Well, Donald Trump happened, and we're going to get all into that, folks. But it's not just Donald Trump, right? It's really the whole Republican Party has just become poisoned, or rather they already had this poison within them, and it was just brought to the surface by Donald Trump. And it seems, just looking around, you have the media still trying to normalize these people who are not Donald Trump, trying to kind of soften them up. You see people entering the presidential race. They go, well, this person is less Trumpy. This person doesn't outright say that they want a fascist government and wants to shred the Constitution. But then you listen to what they say, and they're kind of saying the same exact things that Donald Trump is saying. It's just maddening to see one person after the next on the right get such an easy pass.
Let's highlight some of the GOP conduct before the modern day GOP MAGA Republicans, before getting into all of the crimes that Donald Trump is being investigated for, and the whining and ranting and raving. Let's talk about James Comer, who heads the House Oversight Committee. And we talked about this on the last MeidasTouch podcast, how a bunch of these documents came to James Comer from Rudy Giuliani, who basically funneled these documents to the FBI back in 2020, right? So Rudy Giuliani got these documents from his sources in Ukraine. That's how the modern day MAGA Republican Party knows about it. I want to show you now what James Comer said today in a press conference. Brett, play this, and then I'll give fuller context of what's going on here. Play this clip.
At the briefing, the FBI again refused to hand over the unclassified record to the custody of the House Oversight Committee, and we will now initiate contempt of Congress hearings this Thursday.
So where do these documents come from, Brett? As I hinted out before, that these documents have been funneled through Rudy Giuliani back in 2020. Now, Bill Barr and someone who Bill Barr tasked to look through these documents back then, a United States attorney from Pennsylvania, both recognized that these documents have absolutely no credibility whatsoever, because they were funneled to defame Joe Biden, then candidate Joe Biden. The documents at issue are from sources linked to Putin. Yes. Was an FBI agent the person who received the information from this outside foreign source? Yes. Was it a credible FBI agent who received the information? Yes. But was the information credible? Absolutely not. The information was funneled through a foreign asset with the goal of giving it to the FBI so that they can say, you see, the FBI now has information on Joe Biden. You see what's going on here? So this was already deemed not to be credible at all by Bill Barr, by the DOJ back then. But the MAGA Republicans remembered, aha, we've got this document. And you know how all of these whistleblowers, like they never actually show up and they don't really exist in the first place. That's why they don't show up. So let's go to our next plan here, right? And our next plan is we've got this super secret document that's in the FBI's possession, which is on this form. It's merely an allegation, and it's made by a foreign asset against the United States of America. So because we can't actually get real whistleblowers here, let's just show the American people, aha, we've got this document. And I want to show you kind of the two dueling press conferences that were held today. One by James Comer, and one by Democratic Congress member Jamie Raskin. And I should note this one other thing. It's not like this document wasn't even shown to James Comer or Jamie Raskin or others on the House Oversight Committee, right? The issue was Christopher Wray, the FBI director, by the way, someone who Trump appointed, said, look, I will show this document in a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, because there are real serious issues with the government and the FBI with this document. And the FBI doesn't just publish allegations that defame people that are incredible. Like, we don't just funnel and launder disinformation to make it public. But if you want to see it, come in, we'll show you it at a SCIF. They showed the document. So they've seen the document, but that's not enough, because what James Comer and the MAGA Republicans want to do is publish this so that they can say, you see, this was a credible FBI document. And then it's kind of like maddening, right? In the sense that they're like, the FBI is not credible at all. Defund the FBI, abolish it. But this is a credible FBI document.
Such a good point.
This document is a credible FBI document because a credible FBI source took it. But then it is hearsay on top of hearsay because the FBI source who took it got it from someone else. Anybody can call up the FBI and make an allegation, and it goes on a form. The question is there any there? And Bill Barr said there wasn't. So based on all of this, this is why the MAGA Republicans now want to hold Christopher Wray in contempt, impeach him for that reason, because he didn't want to turn over essentially Russian disinformation. But play this clip of the dueling press conferences.
What I have to say about the ongoing investigation? Did they say anything about the nature of it?
All I know is there's an ongoing investigation. They confirmed there's an ongoing investigation using this information. I assume that ongoing investigation is in Delaware. I don't know that, but I assume that.
Is it part of an ongoing investigation?
Comer said that it was part of an ongoing investigation, and that's what he learned.
Okay, but then I must have missed that, because I've not heard that this is part of any ongoing investigation.
What is
The main reason they're not wanting to make this public is because they're concerned about the source, the highly credible, and I haven't read that in a lot of outlets, the highly credible source that's been with the Bureau since the Obama administration.
Yeah, there's a confidential human source that the FBI works with who has proven to be very credible, who reported a conversation with someone else. That confidential human source said that he had no way of knowing about the underlying veracity of the things that he was being told. And so it's not the source's information, it's the information that he reported from a conversation with someone else that he was not able to verify or authenticate, which is often the case. And that's why we're talking about secondhand hearsay here. And so it's not the source, the confidential human source, who is the origin of the particular claim. That confidential human source is the person who reported that someone else was saying this, and that's why this task force was created, which examined it and then determined there was no reason to move up the chain of investigative procedures.
So to be clear, a foreign asset, someone with links to Vladimir Putin, funneled information through Rudy Giuliani to an actual kind of confidential human source that is, when not credible, foreign asset through Giuliani to a source that is credible. The source that is credible said, this is not credible. And then Bill Barr said, like, let's end this here. Like there's nothing to this at all. That is what the MAGA Republicans are putting out there right now. And this is where they're saying, well, look, this FBI investigator was credible. There was credibility there. Brett, Jordy.
Comer's such a crook, honestly. I mean,
Yep.
and it's just this, as a human, it's honestly incredibly disgusting to continuously try to smear people and call them criminals and try to dig up information when there's nothing to that effect whatsoever. It just, he goes from one cycle to the next of, I got a whistleblower, I got a document, oops, I got another whistleblower, oops, that whistleblower went away, that document went away, oops, what happened this time? And they just move on to the next thing. They're all so incredibly transparent in what they do. Like after they took the loss with the debt ceiling negotiations, they have to go right to, okay, how are we going to throw some red meat at our base right now? All right, we got to get Ray. That's what we got to do. And we'll call Ray a Democrat too, even though he was appointed by Donald Trump. Let's call him a Democrat, and we're going to go after him. And we're also going to arrest Fauci, and we're going to get rid of his retirement fund. They just go full on. And watching it from the outside, it's so transparent, beyond transparent what they're doing. And it shows you also that every single thing that they say is utter projection. Every time they go, it's a witch hunt, or the government is being weaponized against conservatives, whatever they want to call themselves. That's exactly what they are doing every single time. They are weaponizing the government. They are the ones going on witch hunts. It is so transparent. It is criminal, frankly. It is absolutely disgusting on a human level to watch this play out over and over again.
Comer can't even keep a straight face when I'm just saying Comer's the worst actor of them all because he's genuinely just a bad, like the worst, like actually a bad actor. Like he's so disingenuous that you could just see right through him the whole time. It's so pathetic. And just as someone who like really cares about this country, like you look at the TV and you watch this stuff, you're like, oh my God, this guy's an elected official, man. That's crazy.
Seriously.
How many times can they defame someone over and over and over again and then be exposed for doing it with no repercussions because there's immunity under the House Speech and Debate Clause where they could just keep on defaming? Like you would think after the first time where they talked about a whistleblower and then the whistleblower disappeared and didn't exist and made horrific accusations against President Biden, like real serious, like you don't just go around saying these things about human beings, like horrific things, accusing him of engaging in sex trafficking, like accusing him of horrific stuff. And then they just lie about it. Then they move on to the next one, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. And then this whole idea of holding him in contempt is it's just a show. It's just to say, see, there was this secret document out there and we would have been able to prove it. We didn't get to make it public. You saw it. You saw it in the skiff. You got to see it.
Yeah, you literally saw it with your own eyes. And when they asked them about it, they're like, is there anything criminal on that document? Well, we can't exactly say. It's like, well, okay. So what are you saying then? Why are you doing any of this? Because you just want to use innuendo to try to smear Biden, to try to smear private individuals around Biden. That's what you're doing here.
And here's the thing. Why don't you just go to the origin? If the origin was willing to make that complaint, okay, rather than find the complaint, why don't you just, because you're Congress, you've got a lot of power, you can't go and find the person to testify publicly. You can find nobody willing to testify.
Ben, did you hear about the informant, though? I got some news about the informant for you, if you want me to flip you the informant. So I regret to inform you, Anna Paulina Luna, who is like the female George Santos in Congress, legitimately, but a representative Republican, Anna Paulina Luna, she actually just said, the informant, he's actually too afraid to come forward now. He's too afraid. He's too afraid because he's so scared because the information, Ben and Jordy, it's so damaging against the Biden family that he thinks he's going to be killed. It's so damaging. So he can't come forward. It's
the
too
person who they say in President Biden is senile. He's also all knowing and all powerful.
like a super assassin.
He's a super. It depends on which day it is.
Yeah.
By the way,
He's
here is
Schrodinger's
MAGA
president here. Yeah.
here's MAGA Republican Anna Paulina Luna in an interview that she just gave. Also, as Brett mentioned, her background is similar to like Santos. It's like riddled with massive question marks is the most generous thing that I can say about her. She says this is a big thing that she's focused on now. She's going to introduce legislation to fine Democratic Congress member Adam Schiff $16 million. It's the dumbest things. Here, play this clip.
We really were fighting with one hand behind our back, and I will speak to Adam Schiff. Maria, I have a privilege resolution that I'm bringing to the floor, and we are going to fine that man $16 million for using his position to lie to the American people and ultimately push something that not only destroyed our country, ripped us apart, but also, too, is responsible for almost, I believe, maybe even potentially permanently damaging foreign relations. He's a criminal. What he did was wrong, and Adam Schiff, you will be held accountable.
Okay, first off, everything she said there's a complete lie. But like when you have like Adam Schiff, like a federal prosecutor who's got an incredible background, an incredible public servant. You've got Anna Paulina Luna, who like just emerges out of thin air, like no background or experience at all, just saying MAGA, 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 MAGA over and over and over again. Like it is so disgraceful. Just setting aside the politics for a moment, just like you can, just from a level of like sheer competence. I'll give you another example because I think it's an easy segue from Anna Paulina Luna to Lauren Boebert, right? Lauren Boebert did not even show up to the historic debt ceiling bill vote. She said she was against it, but she didn't even show up. And then after, she recorded a selfie video of herself, and like it's like some like weirdo like high school strange crap. Like when you watch this, you're like, how is this like, I don't even know what it is that I'm even watching here. So she makes a selfie video of herself saying the reason that she decided not to show up and that she didn't even want to vote was because the bill was a shit sandwich and she didn't even want to give it attention. So she did a no-show protest. This is what she made a video of herself. She like this. Here, play this clip of the video she made.
Hey everyone, I am back in Colorado, but let's talk about DC. No excuses. I was ticked off. They wouldn't let me do my job, so I didn't take the vote. Once again, Washington's power machine shoved a multi-trillion-dollar bill down our throats, refused to allow debate or amendments, disregarded everything we fought for in January to actually allow representatives to do their jobs, and instead, they served us up a crap sandwich. Call it a no-show protest, but I certainly let every one of my colleagues and the country know I was against this garbage of a bill and against bypassing the voice of each representative. Deals cut in the dark are why we're headed towards $36 trillion in debt, and I refuse to be a part of it.
It's like an SNL skit without even getting to the next part. Without even getting
next
to
part
the
puts it over to the edge. The next part just is like
without
beyond
even
parody.
Without even giving you the reveal here. Okay, let's just assume it ended there. That she genuinely did a no-show protest. Call it a no-show protest because it was a crap sandwich. And the story ended there. I would show you that video and I would go, what in the world is going on here with the MAGA Republicans? But it doesn't end there because over the weekend, new video surfaced from Morgan Reimer, an associate producer at CNN, which told a very different story. You see, Lauren Boebert was caught on tape trying to run into the Capitol building. She was late and she was informed that the vote had already taken place and the doors were closed. So the reason that she did not vote was not just call it a no-show protest. It was because she couldn't do her damn job and missed the vote. Play this video.
They just closed it. They closed it? Yeah.
You ever have those dreams where you dream about like missing an exam or something, you know, or like missing a class, or like you forgot to go to the class all semester and now you realize you're not going to graduate. Like these will be like the panic dreams that I have, at least.
I get those
feel
sometimes.
Like
I feel you.
I think they're recurring dreams for people. Like that felt like that sort of dream come to life. That was like a high school student or a college student trying to run to make their final exam and being told, sorry, the test is already in progress. You cannot come in. That is so unbecoming of a congressperson to have that level of incompetence. Like, put aside even whatever her vote was going to be. If you are a representative in Lauren Boebert's district in Colorado, say you're against this bill. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, right? You elected Lauren Boebert by a very slim margin this time, a very slim margin, but you elected her and you expect that she is going to show up for her job at key votes. And here she is missing a vote that she talked a whole lot of smack about, would not shut up about. And when push came to shove and she actually had to lock in her vote, she was too late and the doors were shut. That's who you're sending to DC. Just from that level of incompetence alone, politics aside, how do you have that person represent you? No normal Republicans, you guys. There are no
Brett,
normal Republicans.
You are so right. Can you just please play that video one more time? Just for our audio listeners, I just want them to really hear what was happening.
They just closed it. They closed it? Yeah.
I mean, that's like, you can't even write that. Like, if you wrote that, you wouldn't believe it. But here's the thing. If you're her constituents, she's just lying to you. Like, she is lying to your faces by making these videos and doing these posts. And by the way, she didn't have to lie. Like no one was forcing her. Nobody knew this video even existed. And I think it was because of just like how ridiculous she was being and all these lies that this person, like, you know what? I don't know this to be true. I'm just speculating. You know what? She's just lying to everybody. I have video of her trying to catch the vote. I'm going to post this so everyone can see what a liar she is. You know, all whoever's running against Boebert has to do is literally just air that video and be like, is this someone who you actually want representing you? She's lying to your faces. She's making you dumb.
That's what Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu said, though, too. He was like, look, people do miss votes from time to time. Like, you know, you probably an important one for you to show up to, but okay, you missed it. But he goes, why'd you lie? I mean, why would you intentionally then mislead all of your constituents and come up like you didn't, to your point, Jordy, you didn't have to do that, but it's because it's pathological.
Yeah.
The modern day MAGA Republican Party, whatever the issue is that is the worst side of the issue and is the lie, like a magnet, they are attracted to that side right away.
Yep.
It's like, what do you do with a global pandemic? Let's call it a conspiracy theory. Like what? Like there's a serious insurrection to overthrow the government. What are you going to do? Do they want us to sing songs with them? What sing songs with them?
What about a choir? Have you considered a choir?
Have you considered doing a choir with them? Have you thought through that one? You know, like every single issue you can take, they'll take the side of it that you're just like what? And we'll go through it. Like the Nikki Haley town hall, like completely. Okay, sorry. I'll show you this game.
One sec. Before we move off this though, like she's there for the vote. Like I don't want to let's just not go away from that. What was she doing? Like, I'm serious. Like,
what was she doing?
What do you think she was doing? She's there very specifically for that vote.
I'll show you this. This is a Georgia GOP chair. Her name is Candace Taylor. Okay.
Oh boy.
This isn't like a rando. Okay. This person has a serious position in the Republican Party in Georgia. Okay. This is what she said last week about the earth being flat and globes being a conspiracy. Play this clip.
More and more, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. So is it or not? I don't know 100%, but it's just, it doesn't make sense the other way. Now that you see it.
The people that defend the globe don't know anything about the globe, because if they knew a tenth of what Matt and I know about the globe, they would be flat earthers because it's absolutely ridiculous.
I can't unsee this. All the globes everywhere. I turn on TV, there's globes in the background. There's globes on there right here. Like this would be a globe if I was a normal person. Like everywhere there's globes. You see them all the time. I mean, it's constant. My children will be like, Mama, globe, 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 globe. They're everywhere. And that's what they do to brainwash. And so for me, if it is not a conspiracy, if it is, real, why are you pushing so hard? Everywhere I go, every store, you buy a globe. There's globes everywhere, every movie, every TV show, news media. Why?
We live on the earth.
Yeah, because
we live on planet Earth. The reason why there are globes is because human beings live on planet Earth. It's not a deeper.
It's not a deep state conspiracy, but notice how their mind always goes to the conspiracy. And these are the same folks who we're trying to explain climate change to, or how like tax policy works, and so you're trying to get those complex issues through to people who are saying things like that on TV. And for the audio listeners, I want to read you the Chiron that was at the bottom, because she was on a flat earther podcast. That was like the show she was on. It was a flat earther podcast. It looks like it was called Jesus Guns. I didn't realize Jesus was such a huge guns fan. And this is the Chiron, the Bible and flat earth, the truth about Antarctica, NASA, and more. All flat earth evidence points to a creator. And this is an interview with flatearthdave.com. Flat Earth Dave. That's the show she was on, okay? And so Blair Erskine, I believe is how you say her name. She's a comedian. I believe she writes for Jimmy Fallon when there's not a writer strike. Maybe Kimmel, actually. She writes for one of the late night shows. She did a sketch imitating her, and it was very funny, and it went viral. And let's just say Candace was not too pleased with the impression. And so then she got really upset also, because other Georgia officials have been using this footage as well to make fun of her and say that she's unfit for the job because of this. And Candace wanted to let people know that she's not actually a flat earther. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse than that, wait till you hear her response to the response. Here's the clip of Candace Taylor's response. This is, I believe, from like yesterday.
I am a Christian. I love Jesus. I am a woman. I'm created perfect in the image of God. And I know who I am. I'm firm in that. I've never said the earth was flat. I've never said that I was a flat earther. Never, ever, ever have I said that. I did not say that globes were fake. I never said that. What I said was that NASA taking billions of dollars every month of our taxpayer money and funding something that we do not see any progression in. If the earth is a globe, which we've always believed the earth is a globe, and we believe that, why do we see globes on all the TV shows, on all the movies, and all the stores? Why are there globes everywhere? Why? Because it's propaganda. It's propaganda for us to be okay with NASA spending billions of dollars of our taxpayer money to fund whatever they want to fund. That does not mean that I'm crazy. That does not mean that I'm unethical. That does not mean that anything that a radical, liberal, psychotic girl in Atlanta who did a parody on me said. Because she did a parody and she said, oh, we can flip the earth upside down and have day and night. I would never have thought to say something so dumb. That is completely idiotic. She said that. Her, not me. And people that say, oh, this is you. No. Look at my lips. She had on red lipstick, but she does not have a full front top lip. And I told her that. The red was a nice touch, but you don't have the lips for it.
Unbelievable.
She looks nothing like me, praise the Lord. And she writes skits for Saturday Night Live. She has a fake Southern accent. She's an Atlantean. She doesn't sound like me from South Georgia. And she's trying to. But it's not me, people. It's her. It's Blair. Her name's Blair. I don't even know her last name.
Why is she so obsessed with correcting the record on who did the parody? You said the actual words. Look at it. She's so obsessed with, let me just tell you, that parody was not me.
You know that completely other person making a joke about me? That wasn't me. I'm setting the record straight.
I'm not a flat earther. Now, let me tell you the conspiracy theory about the globe. Have you heard about the globes? Okay. Why are there all these globes? You see, the flat earth. Are you listening to yourself?
The funny thing is, I thought that was the parody of, like, I couldn't tell. I was like, I was so confused. I was like, is this really her? Is this, but it is. I mean, and look, we've been talking about a lot of these MAGA Republicans, the modern day Republican Party. This is who they are. Like, we're not talking about just like some low-level people. We're not talking about like a random person who showed up in the department store who was video cameraed, who like nobody knows about. We're talking about the leaders of the Republican Party. So if this is their leadership, okay, think about how that trickles down. That's trickle down stupidity, right? I know they love trickle down. That's trickle down idiocracy right there. That's trickle down fascism right there. Here's one more clip I want to show you. This is MAGA Republican Ken Buck from Colorado saying that the more criminal investigations there are into Donald Trump, that makes him more credible. That improves his credibility. Play this clip.
You have acknowledged more broadly that Donald Trump is facing some ethical challenges in his campaign. In addition to what we're talking about, the classified documents probe, he's under investigation for election interference in Georgia, for January 6th. He's already been indicted in New York. Would Republicans be better off with a candidate who is not facing multiple criminal investigations?
You know, it's interesting. I think that the multiple investigations and civil lawsuits that have been brought almost give this presidential candidate and former president credibility. He keeps saying that the world is against him because he's trying to make these changes.
But does he give?
And all of
these
actions that are being taken.
Sorry, forgive me, but you said give. I know what you're saying. He gives him credibility with maybe with some in the electorate. But for you, Ken Buck, does he give him credibility to you?
Well, I have seen him for 4 years. I was in the House when he was president. I voted on his bills. I voted against his bills, sometimes his budgets and whatnot. So I have seen him personally. I don't look at the actions that he has taken that are being investigated as much as his role as a former president and what his policies were.
Look at the crimes that are glaring. I don't look at the crimes that are so open and obvious. What I focus on instead is how he killed over 1 million people when he was in office. And those are the types of policies that I think that we need to bring back here. Let's focus on that type of deadly and lethal incompetence. And one of the great things is how Democrats are responding to this, because the only way you can respond to this is to kind of mock it. I want to show everybody what Democratic Representative Jared Moskowitz did to troll the GOP. We'll talk about that. I also want to talk about Special Counsel Jack Smith updates, some really big updates today. There was the meeting that was held.
A flood of updates, you might say.
Flood of updates. And Donald Trump's lawyers met with Special Counsel Jack Smith and Jack Smith's team in Washington, D.C. We learned about the pool draining into the surveillance room, the surveillance footage room back in October of 2022. We learned about another grand jury that's been impaneled in Florida investigating Donald Trump's crimes, that and more. But first, let's take a quick break.
This is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, it's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about, I don't know, what you need from yourself. Now, I know in my own life, I'm dealing with a lot of different things, be it my family, my friends, or my work life. Because we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and frankly burned out. Now, therapy can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. You see, therapy, it's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries, and then generally speaking, just how to become the best version of yourself. And by the way, therapy, it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. It's for everyone, because what you're going through, it matters. Now, if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Meidas today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Meidas. I take AG1 by Athletic Greens literally every day. Now, I gave AG1 a try because I wanted better gut health, boosted energy, immune system support, and wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. Now, I take AG1 in the morning before starting my day, and it makes me feel unstoppable and ready to take on my day. I'm doing something good for my body, like giving my body the nutrition it craves, like covering my nutritional basis. I've tried a ton of different supplements out there, but this is different, and the ingredients are super high quality. Very quickly, I noticed that it improved my energy and made me feel great. AG1 makes it easier for you to take the highest quality supplements, period. Just one daily serving covers my day's nutritional basis and supports my long-term gut health with 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. It's one scoop of powder mixed with water once a day. AG1 is a really seamless and easy daily habit to maintain. Now, I'm asked all the time about, the one thing I do to take care of my health, that if I couldn't live without, what would it be? That would be AG1 by Athletic Greens. I need it. I can't think of another daily routine that pays off as well as AG1, which is why I trust the product so much. If you're looking for a simpler and cost-effective supplement routine, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Just go to athleticgreens.com/Meidas. That's athleticgreens.com/Meidas. Check it out. Let's go.
Let's go. Welcome back. We are live on the MeidasTouch Podcast. I want to show you, though, how the Democrats are responding to this constant gaslighting and this bizarre behavior by MAGA Republicans. So one of the things that they are doing as well to just kind of promote their conspiracies following the debt ceiling bill becoming law, they're pursuing all of these defund the FBI. Let's hold the FBI director in contempt. And of course, one of their favorite conspiracies is that the federal government, that President Biden is taking away people's stoves, their gas stoves. And this was a conspiracy that was spread by Fox and others because, look, one of the things that a consumer agency within the overall government wanted to research was whether gas stoves were dangerous and could you improve gas stoves to make them safer. It was an agency focused on making consumer products safer. So the chair said, hey, we're exploring that. So based on that, the MAGA Republicans have held hearings on this issue. Like this has been one of their major focuses.
Not inflation?
No, not inflation.
Not gun violence.
Not gun violence, no.
Gas stoves.
This is Democratic Representative Jared Moskowitz trolling the GOP today during their hearing on the Republicans' Save Our Stoves Act. This is the bill that the Republicans put forward.
The actual name.
The actual name, Save Our Stoves Act. This is how Moskowitz responded.
Obviously, we have not just one, but 2 gas stove bills. So my Second Amendment would give gas stoves, I think, the honor that they deserve. A stainless steel 6-burner double oven in Statuary Hall. We have statues there that are made of marble and bronze, but we don't have anything of stainless steel. And so I think this could be the first one. Amendment number 3 helps ensure that the hours of hard work do not go by the wayside on this issue. And so I propose creating a position in the U.S. Department of Energy for the sole purpose of fighting the war on gas stoves. This amendment would create this position in the department, the Supreme Allied Gas Commander, a position that young boys and girls can one day aspire to just as they're sitting in class, maybe reading a book, hopefully a book that wasn't banned, or sitting in class, hopefully being safe, they could think about being one day the Supreme Allied Gas Commander. Now switching over to H.R. 1615, this amendment honors this amendment by also changing its name to Make Appliances Great Again. Many of you already have the hats and shirts and flags and boats, so I figured we would just make it easy so that you could show your support for this amendment. And if you don't like that slogan, because that something of 4 years ago, my last amendment, my second amendment on that one changes the name to Stoves Over Gun Violence Act. In 2020, there were more than 40 million gas stoves, which is only about 10% of the amount of guns that are on the streets. And so I thought that maybe we could show parents really what our priority is, which is stoves over gun violence. And finally, Mr. Chairman, Amendment number 5 to H.R. 1615, to kind of put us back on the right track, is this amendment would take all the funds that are being used for the purpose of this gas stove thing and redirect them for gun violence prevention efforts. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the committee considering my amendments. I yield back the balance of my time.
So good. Moskowitz he's really brilliant. He's really funny. And I always like how he turns the troll and a joke into a very salient, important point.
Totally.
The same way like Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert does it. He does kind of that level of satire, but in Congress. And that's super important because Parkland's his district. Parkland is his hometown. And so the issue of gun violence in particular is incredibly important to him. So to see week after week, mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting, more than one a day at this point in this country, which is horrifying to see. And then to see the GOP majority pushing forward, not on ways to reduce gun violence or help Americans, but gas stove bills, a Save Our Gas Stove bill. The only way at the end of the day you could really combat these folks in many ways is just via mockery. At this point, you just have to expose how weird, how strange, how stupid that they are being on these issues and how they are ignoring what Americans actually care about.
Moskowitz is a genius. He's great at this game. He's great at this game. He does it the right way. That's why he's our favorite for the first ever CROI Award, Congressional Rookie of the Year.
Congressional Rookie of the Year. Some big contenders, man. Big
contenders. But Brett, to your point, you're so right. It's such an excellent observation about like the Colbert approach. It's exactly what Moskowitz is doing here, and it's really smart. And it's really just powerful.
Well, you can't have a serious debate with very unserious people, right? And that was one of the things we've talked about at the top of the show. Is there any serious Republican? So if you end up having this serious debate with them where they have all of their talking points lined up about stoves and they're going to say stoves are critical to our freedom, and then they don't even tell the truth about the issues, you just end up giving credence to their position. So the only way to frankly deal with it is frankly to call it out basically the way Moskowitz did and say, are you being serious? Like, that's what you're talking about? And then pivot and then focus on the issues that actually matter to American people, like jobs and healthcare and education and Social Security and Medicare and making sure a woman can control her body.
Oh, sorry.
Body. And globes, God forbid, globes. But, I think American people are more focused on the fact that you have a jobs report that has surged past expectations. And one of the things here, as it was being reported, that the U.S. added 339,000 jobs in May, surging past the 190,000 jobs that were expected. And by the way, for those keeping track, that's more than 13 million jobs added since President Biden took office. Fox and the whole right-wing echo chamber, they have been rooting for a recession. And not only have they been rooting for it, but the MAGA Republicans have actually been engaging in efforts since President Biden took office to try to put us into a recession. I mean, we forget about it, but we need to always remind our listeners and viewers, like, do you remember when MAGA Republican Senator Ted Cruz and the other MAGA Republicans like encouraged a group of kind of MAGA aligned people at the northern border with certain kind of a very small faction of MAGA aligned people in Canada to try to shut down interstate commerce, not just interstate commerce, intercountry commerce, and to try to shut that down, like causing tons of like economic damage, like economic terrorism, right? And you remember also like what Greg Abbott, Texas MAGA Republican Texas governor, did, where he tried to do like safety inspections of tires to shut down commerce from the southern border. I mean, they've engaged in efforts to actually try to harm the economy. And then they spread the lies about the economy and the fear. And again, it's like we always have to remember all of these data points, right? Because so much new news happens that we just always got to talk about these things. Like, do you remember when the Silicon Valley Bank, there was a run on the bank? You had the MAGA Republicans using social media to try to encourage a overall kind of systemic failure within the American banking system. Like the MAGA Republicans and their fear mongering, they were trying to, one, they tried to encourage it with Silicon Valley Bank and then the other banks, but they wanted to basically say that that was going to spread everywhere. And they were pushing that message, the Elon Musks and everybody in that orbit. And so when they actually have to report on this information, they look genuinely upset. Like, here's Maria Bartiromo on Fox. This is how she handled the news, because they're ready to basically say Biden's the worst and all of this, but they got to report on things that people care about. Jobs. Here, play this clip.
This is a good report, no doubt about it. 339,000 jobs, much better than expected. Bill, what I like about this report is the fact that the jobs created that we are looking at are high-paying jobs. You're talking about jobs in business and professional services, in healthcare. The government jobs, by the way, also up 56,000. So you've got jobs that are higher paying than leisure and hospitality, which has been where much of the bulk of the job creation has been, leisure and hospitality. That's not the case this month. So that's a good story here, as well as a good story that it's better than expected overall. What I don't like about this report is the fact that unemployment is rising. The unemployment rate is now up to 3.7%.
Which is still like the lowest unemployment rate in like 50 years. And they just want to find any little thing that they possibly can to try to complain about, because they're legitimately salivating every morning, that Friday morning when the job reports come out. And they are like, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one. We're going to get less than expected job growth. We're going to get to bash Biden on the economy. It's going to be everything we've been saying over and over on this channel. It's all going to come true this time. It's going to come true this time. And then it doesn't. I feel like we need to go back in the archives and find that moment for like every month for the past like 13 months or whatever it's been, and find Maria Bartiromo. I think she's typically the host at that hour who has to report it, bracing for the bad news, going, we got a jobs report coming in and it's expected to be horrific for the economy. And then it hits that it's a great jobs report, and they uncomfortably have to present that news to their viewers, who they keep telling the economy is just in complete disarray to.
It's a great idea. Can I just say it's a great idea, and the late night shows are going to steal that from you like immediately?
No, they're not, because there's a writer's strike, Jordy. So we got.
Ooh.
Honestly, with all this stuff, like I'm like, this is the one time like you really need the late night shows, like for the flat earth lady and Boebert missing the vote. Like the material would be so good, and now we have a strike. Come on.
Why do you need that? You got the MeidasTouch Network. You got the MeidasTouch Podcast, where we talk about things like that. And also, how about the fact that George Santos was the guest of honor at this essentially Republican-backed party for the new federal state of China's 3rd anniversary ceremony, where they basically were calling to free Miles Gao, who faces 11 felony charges for an overall conspiracy regarding $1 billion. And basically, he bought himself a 50,000 square foot apartment and Ferraris, I think a $37 million yacht, by the way, the same yacht that Steve Bannon was on when Bannon was arrested by the FBI for engaging in the We Build the Wall scheme that he was ultimately pardoned for. You may know the name Miles Gao as well, because that is where Steve Bannon held a meeting leading up to the November 2020 election. I think it was actually either a place in DC owned by Miles Gao or this one in New Jersey, where Bannon told everybody in this party arranged by Miles Gao that no matter what the result was, here's what Trump was going to do.
That's played by the January 6th committee for those who watched our coverage over here.
Yeah. That audio of that meeting in October of 2020 was played before the January 6th committee. And Miles Gao also like a big funder, I think, of Getter and all of these like right-wing media platforms that spread all the Hunter Biden like disinformation.
He's like one of the chief architects of like most of the disinformation that you see online. Like he is this billionaire guy, a Chinese dissident who's on the run from Chinese authorities, and he's found an ally here with Steve Bannon. And he pushes all this toxic disinformation across America, and he really ramped it up during COVID. He was like one of the chief purveyors of the COVID disinformation, spreading conspiracy theories about Pfizer and Moderna and all the companies and the effects of the vaccines. And he just continues to pollute the internet and elsewhere with the lies through the multiple properties that he owns using his money. And I mean, it's to just look at the scene. Let's just set the scene for a second. You have an indicted George Santos attending a conference with an indicted Steve Bannon to try to free an indicted Chinese dissident named Miles Gao, who are all indicted for fraud, who are all indicted for stealing from other people. They are all frauds, and there's nothing that depicts it more than the three of them with this event.
Three of them at this event. And by the way, the fact that Miles Gao, whether or not he's even really a billionaire, I mean, the accusation is that I think $673 million that the government's been able to seize from this $1 billion was basically grifted. Like he took it from investors online who he would spread the disinformation to, and then he would raise money from them that he would then use to funnel his lifestyle to spread all of this right-wing disinformation as well. And he's made all these powerful allies in the MAGA Republican Party. Like they all support this guy. And they were like, oh, this is just the United States government acting like the Chinese government. The U.S. government's a totalitarian state. What are you talking about? Like the guy is clearly a crook. This is George Santos, though, from earlier in the day, calling for the release of Miles Gao. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Play this clip.
I want you all to think about the guy who bought everybody in this room, and that's Miles Gao. He can't be with us today because Miles is a prisoner of the CCP in the United States. Can you imagine that? Miles is a prisoner not being given his right to fight for his freedom in liberty and to defend himself in liberty because the CCP has its clutches so deep into everything that I don't believe he will have a fair trial. That's why I said on the House of the United States floor, proudly, enough is enough, free Miles Gao. You have to do it. This isn't political.
This is insane. And Miles Gao also, he's got this organization with Steve Bannon called New Federal China, I think it's called.
New Federal State of China.
Federal State of China. And New Federal State of China was also one of the chief sponsors of, drumroll please, CPAC, run by Matt Schlapp, another person who's in quite a bit of legal drama himself. The event, remember that event with the big sign that said, "We are all domestic terrorists." Miles Gao was one of the main funders of that CPAC event. So it all comes full circle. And going back to the theme of today's episode, no normal Republicans, you guys.
No normal
normal
Republicans.
Republicans.
Right before we went live, I think he missed the deadline that was imposed by the magistrate judge. It was a 5 p.m. Eastern time deadline, but George Santos filed his opposition to a number of media interveners who requested the names of the suretors, the people who posted bail in the amount of $500,000 for George Santos when he was criminally indicted by the Department of Justice. And the federal magistrate judge, Judge Ann Shields, gave George Santos until 5 p.m. today on Monday to file his opposition about why the names should not be released. There's no valid reason at all why the names should not be released. I think Santos missed the deadline. I mean, I think someone asked me, like,
He pulled the Boebert? He pulled the Boebert?
He filed it late. I believe. I mean, I didn't see it at 5 p.m. when I was looking for it. But whoever, and he asked for the extension. Like, this is like one of the most pathetic legal documents I've ever seen. This is why he's saying he doesn't want to release the name of the suretors, the individuals who posted the bond for him. Here, in the instant case, the suretors are likely to suffer great distress. They may lose their jobs and, God forbid, may suffer physical injury. That's one of the reasons. There is little doubt that the suretors will suffer some unnecessary form of retaliation if their identities and employment are revealed. You need only look at the declaration of one of the people attached here too, and the other exhibits containing various threats made to Representative Santos, members of his staff, and even your undersigned, even the lawyer. The fact that someone emailed me my own letter back to me soon after I filed it with the court tells us that they are just ready and waiting to pounce. This is actually what the lawyer wrote. In conclusion, Rep. Santos' case has become what the Second Circuit has referred to as a heater case involving a media frenzy. If this court is so inclined to unseal the sureties, we truly fear for their health, safety, and well-being. In fact, if the suretors are required to be identified, we respectfully request that the court allow the suretors notice before the court releases their information so that they can withdraw as co-signers on the bond, and Representative Santos and I will appear before your honor forthwith. My client would rather surrender to pretrial detainment than subject these suretors to what will inevitably come. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. It's not the way courts work. I mean, there's a level of incompetence here too. You don't get to like call an audible and change your position. The bottom line is these suretors put money up for a freaking traitor, for a crook, for someone who's lied about everything, who is a member of the House of Representatives and disgraces our great nation with that title each and every day. This is a public courtroom, a public proceeding with a public official, and the bond is not some super secret thing, especially the case here where the criminal at issue lies about everything, and there are serious concerns about where he's getting his funding from people to fund it. You don't just get to say, you know what, they'll withdraw and people don't get to know the name. No, this is a court of law. We're entitled to the information. I think ultimately the judge will release the name of these suretors, and it just goes to show you like how everything they do is just completely incompetent, because he may now go to jail and the names of the suretors will be released. like both of those things will happen. But, you know, he's a total liar. I bet you when push comes to shove and they actually say that they'll release the names, he'll be like, oh, actually, now I don't want to go to jail. I'll keep the bond. I'm not going to do everything the guy says is a complete and utter lie. But that was just filed moments before we went live, and we'll see what the Department of Justice.
I don't know. He seemed like such a stand-up, honest guy before this. I'm not sure what happened in the past 24 hours, but certainly caught me by surprise.
Donald Trump posting on his social media platform, "How can DOJ possibly charge me? who did nothing wrong when no other presidents were charged, when Joe Biden won't be charged for anything, including the fact that he has 1,850 boxes, much of it classified and some dating back to his Senate day, when even Democrat senators are shocked. Also, President Clinton had documents and won in court. Crooked Hillary deleted 33,000 emails, many classified, and wasn't even close to being charged. Only Trump, the greatest witch hunt of all time. What a whiny traitor lunatic this individual is. Let's talk about all of the updates with respect to special counsel Jack Smith's criminal investigation. It looks like indictments are very, very near. And then we should also talk about as well what went down at that Nikki Haley town hall, because it's like wherever you look, Trump, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, it is the MAGA Republican. This is who they are. They're all like this right now. And so you're either going to be MAGA Republican, kind of fascist idiocracy, or you are pro-democracy, which could be liberals, progressives, people not affiliated with political parties, independents, real actual conservatives. Let's have differences in ideas, but let's be normal and let's focus on issues that matter to people. That's why I love this pro-democracy coalition. But let's expose what's going on with Donald Trump right after this quick break.
60% of U.S. pork production comes from one company owned by China. And their hogs, they're given something called ractopamine, which is banned in 160 countries, including China. Yet you find this in your grocery store aisle every day. There's a better way. I'd like to tell you about Moink. That's moo plus oink. Moink delivers grass-fed and grass-finished beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, and sustainable wild-caught Alaskan salmon straight to your door. Moink farmers, they farm like our grandparents did. And as a result, Moink meat tastes like it should, because the family farm, it does it better. The Moink difference is a difference you can taste, and you can feel good knowing that you're helping family farms stay financially independent too. I love that Moink is helping save rural America, and I know that you will too. Join the Moink movement today. Shark Tank host Kevin O'Leary called Moink's bacon the best bacon he's ever tasted. And Ring Doorbell founder Jamie Siminoff jumped at the chance to invest in Moink. Plus, they guarantee you'll say, oink, oink, I'm just so happy I got moinked. And I know I do, and I know you will too. Keep American farming going by signing up right now at moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch. Right now, and listeners of this show get free bacon in your first box. It's the best bacon you'll ever taste, but for a limited time. Spelled MOINK box.com/MeidasTouch. That's moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch. And now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Hold On. Plastic. It's everywhere. It's everywhere we look, and not enough is being done about it. 100 billion plastic bags are used and then thrown away every year. Yeah, that plastic bag you see in the gutter or floating in a stream or washed up on the beach, multiply that by 100 billion. Yikes. Am I right? But there's a better way, and it could start with a better bag. Hold On is a company born from the idea that there must be a better way to go about our daily chores. Now, trash bags and kitchen bags, they're necessary staples, but do they need to be 100% plastic? 100% no! Hold On trash and kitchen bags are heavy-duty, plant-based, non-toxic, and 100% home compostable, which means they break down in weeks, not decades, without filling up our landfills or polluting our oceans. Hold On wants to be part of the growing movement away from single-use plastics, which, if you ask most experts, is the single worst kind of plastic. At every stage, production, disposal, decomposition, plastic bags are doing harm to our earth, our water, and even our bodies. Hold On is absolutely amazing. 1, they're a woman-owned, woman-founded company. 2, the Hold On bags are incredibly durable and sleek. It's so good to know that what I'm using is plant-based, non-toxic, and 100% home compostable. To shop plant-based bags and replace single-use plastics all over your home, visit holdonbags.com/Meidas or enter Meidas at checkout to save 20% off your order. Sustainability has never been more simple. That's HOLDON bags.com/Meidas, MEIDAS, or enter Meidas to receive 20% off your order. Small things can lead to lasting change if we stop and say, hold on. Thank you, Hold On, for sponsoring this episode.
Jordy, great work out there. Great work out there. Always bringing the intensity there, Jay. You got to appreciate it. And for those of you who want to support our sponsors, to support this pro-democracy movement, you can find links to all of the deals that you heard this episode in the description of this episode. So be sure to check them all out. It really helps.
Use the links. Use the code. It helps us.
Helps
a lot of updates with special counsel Jack Smith today. It's like, where do we start? I think
good question.
First and foremost, we learn that the grand jury that has taken a brief hiatus in Washington, D.C., that has been receiving evidence from special counsel Jack Smith about Donald Trump's theft of thousands of government records and obstruction of justice, they are reconvening again this week. There's been some conflicting reports about the last day they met, but seems to have been on or around May 5th was the last time that grand jury met in Washington, D.C. And a lot of people, including myself, speculate the reason for that gap is that special counsel Jack Smith has to prepare a charging memorandum, which he then sends to Merrick Garland to approve the charging decision, and then special counsel Jack Smith would go back and actually seek the indictments from the grand jury that has been receiving this information for, the better part of the past year. That would make sense. It normally would take a few weeks to prepare that memo. I'm very confident that if special counsel Jack Smith makes the recommendation to indict, which I'm confident he's going to do, that Merrick Garland is not going to overrule that decision. Merrick Garland would not pick someone like Jack Smith, who used to run the public integrity section, who was doing just fine prosecuting war crimes cases in Europe, to come to the United States to discover all of these crimes as part of a diligent investigation, have his life threatened by Donald Trump and these MAGA Republican stochastic terrorists, only to have his decision overruled when he says that he wants to charge Donald Trump. So I think that's what has been taking place. And then there would be this, they would make the decision to indict or not, but I believe they will make the decision to indict. So with that information breaking, there was another post that Donald Trump had made on his social media platform the other night. And then, of course, today he made another post after this meeting that was held earlier in the day. We woke up to that news that a meeting took place between three of Donald Trump's lawyers, Lindsey Halligan, Jim Trusty, and John Rowley, and special counsel Jack Smith and special counsel Jack Smith's team. For those watching on YouTube, you can see Lindsey Halligan, John Rowley, and Jim Trusty is the lawyer in the front there, heading into the department. What a crew. What a crew, heading into the Department of Justice office there. They met for approximately 2 hours, and then immediately after that meeting, Donald Trump posted that message on his social media platform that I read earlier. How can they possibly charge me? Who did nothing wrong when no other presidents were charged? Well, no other presidents engaged in the heinous and despicable criminal conduct that you engaged in.
Yeah, this is so unprecedented. Yeah, it's unprecedented for an ex-president to do any of the things that you did. That's why this is unprecedented. And just to make the point abundantly clear, Jack Smith was present during this meeting with Donald Trump's attorneys, which I think is a very important data point, because if this was just routine kind of, they want to check in and see what's going on sort of thing, I don't think Jack Smith is just there at every meeting. He's not. So this Jack Smith was there with the attorneys, which lets you know that this 2-hour meeting that they had today was a big deal. And you could see the look on their faces as they exited. There are some photos going around. These lawyers did not look too happy when they got out of the Department of Justice office. They looked like they saw a ghost in there. It was not pretty.
And they were probably Drew Strauss. Who's going to have to tell him? Who's going to? I don't want to.
And Jordy, you're so right there. That's the great observation. And that just goes to show you how representing Donald Trump is, make attorneys get attorneys. Like, you're right. Their fear there was who has the small straw of who has to tell him what just took place. Because, and this is the same thing with the MAGA Republicans. It's like, he's going to be mean to me. He's going to write a mean tweet or a mean post. It's like, okay, you've got like President Biden standing up to Vladimir Putin and proving that the Russian army is now the second biggest army in Ukraine, full stop. like you've got President Biden rallying freaking NATO around Ukraine, basically standing up to Vladimir Putin the way he is. And for MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump saying mean things is like, oh my God, he's going to say mean things to me. I mean, that's it though. That's what they're afraid about. A mean tweet, a mean post. Like seriously, like DeSantis, for all of like the weird crap that he does, and like we can go and talk about some of the weird crap. By the way, news broke about DeSantis too, that from Bexar County in Texas, the sheriff has now recommended that criminal charges be brought. I don't know if it's against DeSantis himself, but at least against DeSantis's top aides when DeSantis kidnapped people in Texas and brought them to Martha's Vineyard. And so the sheriff recommended criminal charges. That also broke right before the show today. And so now it's in the hands of the DA to prosecute these people. And you may have some of DeSantis's top aides criminally prosecuted for like kidnapping. Like that's what's going to go down. But like, if you wanted to be tough, like just freaking go in front of Donald Trump's face the way Democrats do and say, you're a freaking traitor. Like you're a coward, call the bully out to his face. Anytime Donald Trump has been called out to his face, he backs down in a second because he is the ultimate coward, but nobody steps up to it. I mean, you think about the time where Donald Trump wanted to appoint that guy to be the head of the DOJ and make him the acting DOJ to try to overturn the results of the election. And then all the other people who worked at the DOJ stood up to him and goes, absolutely not, you freaking moron. If you did that, and they yelled at him. And the moment that Jeff Clark, I think is the guy's name, and the moment they yelled at him, he was like, okay, I won't do it. I won't do it. All you have to do is stand up to this clown, but nobody wants to.
It's that classic high school bully syndrome. The bully in high school would always stick his chest out and act all tough. And then the first person to stand up for him, he would cower. He's a classic high school bully. Can I also make an observation, please, on Donald Trump's post? Have you guys noticed that he's completely, ever since we've told the world that Mad Dog Jack Smith is like the coolest nickname you could give somebody? It's like calling him T-Bone. It's like, he's totally backed off using the Mad Dog when referring
He's totally laid off the Mad Dog. And I think he realized the Mad Dog was far too cool of a nickname to give somebody who you don't like. Jordy, such a good observation. The thing that Ben had pointed out to us earlier also was that the posts that Trump made right before he was criminally indicted in New York looks identical to the post. Ben, I got, what doing? Ben, for the audio listeners, Ben literally just put his phone up to the screen as if we don't have technology to show the tweet. You think I'm not going to be prepared with this one? Come on. It's literally the same. I can't believe that just happened.
I don't see that. I didn't know you had that one. I was trying to do this.
Like we've been doing the show now for almost 3 years, big bro. It's like Brett comes prepared.
Ben just tries to act like he's not in one of the younger generations. He tries to age himself. It's like when Ben takes screenshots and he takes photos of his computer screen instead of actually doing a screenshot and sending it to us. But here's the Alvin Bragg tweet that he did right before he was criminally indicted in New York. Why won't Bragg drop the case? Everybody says there is no crime here. I did nothing wrong. It was all made up by a convicted nutjob with zero credibility, blah, 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 blah. And if you just look at the post, this and this, like you could even see just by even staring at them for the viewers that they look exactly the same. It's the same fear. It's the same panic. That's just I think it's like the pre-indictment tradition for Donald Trump here to send out a post. He may just have a template at this point. He just got a template. He just switches out Bragg with Jack Smith. He switches out New York with DC. And there was a little nugget though in the story that really caught my eye, and it was the first time I had seen anything to this effect. And I'm curious to get your thoughts here, Ben, because first time I'm hearing about this. In the New York Times piece about everything that's going on, they said the following: prosecutors are expected to question a new witness in front of a federal grand jury sitting in Florida this week, according to people familiar with the matter. At least one other witness has already appeared before the Florida grand jury, which is separate from the one that has been sitting for months in Washington. It is not clear why a second grand jury is taking testimony in Florida. What the heck do you mean? A second grand jury in Florida?
Well, how come that's also not the headline or its own story? You know, so many times when I read these Jack Smith stories, whether it's on the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Guardian, they all do a great job. Like they'll put things like that in their
Like area
stories.
bombshell on like paragraph 8 at the
Yeah, and I'll be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, let's move that up to like right there at the top. And so what I think is going on is that the grand jury in Washington, D.C., that ultimately has jurisdiction over Donald Trump. That will have jurisdiction over, I think, some of Donald Trump's kind of top aides. But I think that this other grand jury that's been impaneled in Florida, and we don't know for how long, what they are focused on is investigating the crimes that were committed by the staff at Mar-a-Lago. So I think that's what would explain the different grand juries, essentially one for Trump in Washington, D.C. And mind you, there's at least two that we know of in Washington, D.C., one relating to Trump's theft of the thousands of government records, another one related to Donald Trump's conduct regarding the insurrection and his election interference and wire fraud. So at least two that we know there. At least one that we know of in the Southern District of New York regarding Trump Media and the SPAC, Digital World Acquisition Company. And then now we know in Florida, there's this grand jury that I think is criminally investigating the staff. And I think it's focused on people like Walt Nauta, Donald Trump's staff member, the one who was seen moving the boxes on the surveillance camera. And Walt Nauta first told special counsel Jack Smith when he was first interviewed, because special counsel Jack Smith did a sweep of all of the people first and spoke to them. It's a crime to lie to the FBI. And originally, Walt Nauta said that he didn't touch any of the classified records. He didn't move any boxes. But special counsel Jack Smith had the surveillance footage. A lot of people are like, what was Merrick Garland doing before special counsel Jack Smith was appointed? Work. Merrick Garland was doing work. I know reflexively people just want to hate on Merrick Garland, but a lot of these subpoenas that were issued where special counsel Jack Smith has his information, Merrick Garland was not out there writing tweets or Truth Social posts in all caps. Ha, 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 ha. Here's what I am doing today. No, he was out there issuing subpoenas for things like surveillance footage. So mind you, special counsel Jack Smith's appointed in November of 2022, but back in June and July, you have Merrick Garland issuing a first subpoena for surveillance footage. Then he issues another subpoena for surveillance footage after Mar-a-Lago was searched by the Department of Justice, after the search warrant was executed in August. Then there was a preservation letter sent by Merrick Garland and the DOJ in October of 2022. So a lot of work there. Special counsel Jack Smith then got all that information when he took over in November of 2022, and he sees Walt Nauta and goes, okay, you're a liar. I see you here on the surveillance footage moving records on June 2nd, the day before the top counterintelligence official at the DOJ showed up at Mar-a-Lago on June 3rd. So Walt Nauta, I believe, has been a target of special counsel Jack Smith's investigation. We've also heard about another individual, a maintenance worker who helped Walt Nauta move the boxes on June 2nd. And this maintenance worker, his name has been reported, Carlos D. Oliveira, and he moved these boxes with Walt Nauta the day before. He had claimed that he was just helping out Walt Nauta and didn't realize what the boxes were, or that there was classified, documents in these boxes. But then we learned later in July, after the DOJ issued a subpoena for surveillance footage, that Carlos D. Oliveira was then asking the head of IT at Mar-a-Lago, someone by the name of Yusil Taveras, hey, how does the system work? Like, do you know if they're able to capture people like walking there, and how long are these tapes stored? And then Another bombshell today that we believe it's the same
Wild.
maintenance worker, Carlos de Oliveira, drained the Mar-a-Lago pool into the office where the
Sounds like a
surveillance
euphemism for something. I don't know. Draining the
where the
Mar-a-Lago pool.
surveillance tapes were kept. The room that had the surveillance footage in it was flooded when the pool was drained into it. And we believe it's the same maintenance worker, Carlos de Oliveira. That's at least the name that's been identified as being the maintenance worker who drained the pool. So I do think that this grand jury in Florida is focused on individuals, like what happened there. Now, ultimately, we don't know if the draining of the pool into the surveillance footage room resulted in a situation where they weren't able to produce all of this surveillance footage. Because remember, it wasn't just the search in August, right? August 2022 search warrant executed, but Merrick Garland, before special counsel Jack Smith, continues to subpoena more surveillance footage after. The preservation letter sent by Merrick Garland is in October of 2022. So that's why the pool being drained in October of 2022, when another preservation letter is sent by Merrick Garland, raises all of these red flags right there. Right.
I'm sure he was just trying to drain the swamp. I mean, let's give him benefit of the doubt here. I mean, you'd have to really believe that this is just a complete and utter coincidence. And you know, I think coincidences do happen. I think this is a bit of a convenient timing here, a bit of a convenient situation where the pool just so happens to flood into the room with the IT equipment. Like a mistake is like me spilling my coffee on the carpet, which I did right before the show. But that's another story. A mistake is not necessarily draining a pool into the room with IT equipment, and just the very nature of it. If they're able to go back and prove that in any way that this was done on purpose or premeditated, it doesn't matter whether or not footage was affected. It does not matter whether or not the IT equipment was destroyed by the flood. The very act of wanting to try to do that is obstructive behavior, and it just adds on to the obstruction charges that are coming for anybody that's involved in that scheme, which is why the Justice Department is looking into that now, as well as they continue to expand this probe.
There are issues, though, we know, with the surveillance footage that was turned over. There are gaps in the surveillance footage, and some of the surveillance footage is corrupted. So that's why we've heard about how Matt Calamari Sr. and Matt Calamari Jr., who work in the Trump organization, they oversee all of the security and surveillance footage at all of Donald Trump's properties. They went before the grand jury in Washington, D.C. Special counsel Jack Smith has also subpoenaed from the company that actually operates the surveillance cameras, the third-party operator. They've been subpoenaed as well, because while some surveillance footage was turned over, that's how they figured out that Walt Nauta was moving these boxes on June 2nd, the day before the DOJ showed up. Just to give you the visual of this image, think about it like this. Donald Trump had a lawyer, Evan Corcoran, searching in the storage facility, and that's where Evan Corcoran was told all of the potential classified documents were found, and he only identified 38. So like right out of like a skit from like one of these, comedic sketches, although there's nothing funny about it. Like as Corcoran would go into the storage, you'd have Nauta like taking it and like moving it and then back and forth. Like that's kind of what is believed to potentially have been happening here. But anyway, special counsel Jack Smith focused on all of that, focusing on their surveillance footage. Why is there certain gaps in them later? But they were able to at least get a bunch of this surveillance footage that shows the involvement of people. But we will keep you posted. People believe, legal observers, people close to the situation, they really do believe that you're going to have a charging decision soon. And just remember with the Manhattan District Attorney, when we felt this way, it took about 3 to 4 weeks for it to actually happen. Like first it was like maybe even longer. Like it seemed like it could happen that week. Then Trump, like late February, very early March, that's when Trump started posting like I'm going to be indicted. And so everyone's like, so is it going to happen next Tuesday, or like, when is it happening? And then it still took like 5 or 6 weeks after that, or 4 weeks after that.
And then there was that Politico story that was like, actually, the grand jury is going away and they're not going to indict for months. And then it happened and we were like, no, hold on, hold your horse. And it happened the day later. So, we're on the precipice of indictments here. And just so the folks know listening to that, Florida grand jury, also it's a federal grand jury that the DOJ is overseeing. It's not a state case or anything like that. The Department of Justice has offices throughout the country, like in the Southern District of New York, these are federal cases still. But those are 4 people who are committing these crimes right now in Florida who live there. So.
And I think a good way to have this episode go full circle is to talk about the complete change in someone like a Nikki Haley, right? Because under normal it's like a good litmus test to focus on what happened to a Nikki Haley. Because in a normal political environment, right, she would have some views that I think would be completely out of touch. But because she's so focused on her ambition and focused on just kind of power, at the expense of truth, at the expense of our democracy. We see someone who used to speak proudly about her efforts to take Confederate flags down at the South Carolina Capitol building, right? To someone now who is, literally saying fascist, genocidal things. She sounds Trumpier than Trump. And of course, CNN gave her a platform. I want to dissect, though, some of the lowlights of this right now. But here's an example. She, in this town hall, blames trans girls for teenage girls wanting to commit suicide. She spreads this complete and utter lie based in a complete falsehood. There's no evidence that this happened once, okay? Yet alone systemic. No evidence this happened once. But to say it like this and to take a serious issue like suicide and then say that that it is because of trans girls. Here, play this clip.
Want to start with biological boys playing in girls' sports. That's one thing. The fact that we have gender pronoun classes in the military now. All of these things that are pushing what a small minority want on the majority of Americans, it's too much. It's too much. The idea that we have biological boys playing in girls' sports, it is the women's issue of our time. My daughter ran track in high school. I don't even know how I would have that conversation with her. How are we supposed to get our girls used to the fact that biological boys are in their locker rooms? And then we wonder why a third of our teenage girls seriously contemplated suicide last year? We should be growing strong girls, confident girls.
It's really like the lowest of the low to blame a marginalized community like that on depression in other girls in society. And when also the stats reflect, on the contrary, that people within the LGBTQ community have much higher rates of suicide, sadly, because of people, honestly, like Nikki Haley at the end of the day, and people who try to kick marginalized communities, especially when they are down. And the arguments that she uses also remind me of the same kind of bigoted arguments that people would speak about before gay marriage was the law of the land, before same-sex marriage, when they would say, how am I supposed to explain this to my kids? How am I supposed to explain this to my young kids? Guess what? It's actually kind of easy to explain it to your kids. Just because you're bigoted doesn't mean that children are bigoted as well. You're also taking an issue that is not really an issue. This is really not an issue that affects really anybody here. And the way that she tries to flip this whole notion, she said something that I think is very deliberate there. She said, this is the women's issue of our time. How dare you say that? You're the party who is literally preventing women from crossing state lines if they want to get health care, if they want to get an abortion. You are saying that this is the woman's issue of our time, not the fact that your party has completely stripped away the bodily autonomy of women. I'm sorry, you don't get to gaslight people like that on the national level. And to attack a community like this is just, frankly, just absolutely abhorrent.
I also think about so many Americans have lost a loved one to suicide, and to completely create false equivalencies here and to just make up reasons is kind of just broadly harmful. Like, statements like that are very, very harmful, and there really wasn't any pushback by CNN to that statement.
That's a good point. Where was the pushback from Tapper?
And here's the thing too, like, when you platform something like that, or when you platform Donald Trump and you don't do the hard work that we're doing here to really call it out and dissect it in a meaningful way, it's very triggering to a lot of people who have experienced this, whether you're a trans girl, whether you are someone who lost someone who committed suicide, right? Statements like this, like when Donald Trump made fun of E. Jean Carroll, to all the women out there who were victims of sexual assault, to have a crowd of people laughing at the idea of sexual assault and laughing and making a joke of it without a moderator pushing back at it and saying, that's not funny. What are you laughing at? Like, that's despicable. Without doing that, you're just platforming a situation that creates PTSD and that creates real trauma in people. And that's part of what CNN needs to learn, amongst a lot of other things. I'm okay with having tough interviews with people, but then you've got to be tough and ready with the fact checks. Here's Nikki Haley, though, taking a stance that women who get abortions shouldn't be jailed or put to death. This is how she wants to, I guess, kind of soften her position. Play this clip.
I think we can all come together and say any woman that has an abortion shouldn't be jailed or given the death penalty. Can't we start there? Can't we start there? Because what
a hero. Did you not see the clip? Clip just played. Huh?
Why does that mean?
Oh, that's so funny. No, the clip just played. No, yeah. I mean, you're a hero, Nikki Haley. Congratulations. You've taken the stance that that women should not be killed for getting an abortion. You're a true hero there. But then they tried to nail her down. This is a point where Jake Tapper asked her if she would support a 6-week ban on abortion, which is a big thing that Republicans are passing throughout the country. And she once again avoided the question, and then she tried to flip it to a completely different kind of issue, pinning it on President Biden and Kamala Harris and the issue of late-term abortion, which is not what the question is whatsoever, nor was it ever the law of the United States. I'll play this short clip.
If a 6-week ban theoretically came to your desk, would you sign it?
But why? I will answer that when you ask Kamala and Biden if they would agree to 37 weeks, 38 weeks, 39 weeks. Then I'll answer your question.
Just avoiding the question, just refusing to answer the question. But perhaps, honestly, like, the most disheartening piece of all of this was really what she said about, I mean, it's all horrible. I can't put one over the next, but she ended up blaming the media for making the Charleston church shooting about race. Once again, Nikki Haley was one of the people responsible for actually getting the Confederate flag taken down after these horrific events from the state capitol because of what it represents. That should be something in any normal political party that people are actually running on opposing racism in the country. But because she's running for president in the MAGA Republican Party, she wanted to say that at the Mother Emanuel Church massacre, it wasn't about race until the media actually made it all about race.
I'll tell you, we had that horrific shooting in Charleston that killed 9 amazing souls. And it happened at a time where It was on the heels of Ferguson. And I was so worried our state was going to fall apart. And the national media came in and they wanted to make it about race. They wanted to make it about the death penalty. They wanted to make it about guns. And I strong-armed them at the time. And I said, there will be a time and place we can have those debates. But right now we need to put to rest 9 amazing souls. And I tried to protect them.
I mean, the person who shot down those 9 African Americans in an African American church was an avowed white supremacist. And she has the nerve, she blames the media. Oh, it was the media who made it all about race. Like, how dare you? Honestly, there's no Republican in this party right now willing to run for office who's actually willing to discuss issues that are actually of importance to people and are actually able to take these issues with the gravity that they deserve. Instead, they try to turn everything to an us versus them. They try to turn everything into a culture war sort of issue. And there are actual human lives on the line. This is also her thing. This was a good moment actually by Jake Tapper here, where he just asked the most simple question that you could ask a Republican these days. What's this woke thing you're talking about? You keep saying woke over and over and over. Explain woke? And Nikki Haley, she doesn't explain it.
You know, luckily, South Carolina is very anti-woke.
Woke, the word woke, used to be used by progressives to talk about an awareness of inequities and historical inequities. But obviously it means something else to conservatives criticizing it. What does it mean to you? How do you define woke?
There's a lot of things. I mean, you want to start with biological boys playing in girls' sports. That's one thing. The fact that we have gender pronoun classes in the military now. I mean, all of these things that are pushing what a small minority want on the majority of Americans, it's too much. It's too much. I mean, the idea that we have biological boys playing in girls' sports, it is the women's issue of our time.
Woke. What's woke? I don't know. Here's a bunch of examples of I think are woke. Listen, at the end of the day, there are no normal Republicans right now, at least not in places of power, not in the power center of the Republican Party. And that is what is so damaging right now. And we need more voices there to speak out and to run for higher office and to really confront these people, because as we've said time and time again, when you confront these people strongly, they fold. But there is just far too much cowardice on the Republican side that right now the Democratic Party is the only pro-democracy party out there. We've showed you the priorities throughout this episode. We've showed you the people in power in the Republican Party, and there is simply nothing that they are offering for people. They'd rather distract their base with these issues about pronouns or about gas stoves rather than actually help out unions or help out farmers or try to actually have a fairer tax policy or you name it. You name the issue, they always seem to be on the wrong side of it. And not only just on the wrong side of it is like they have a different view. These are ideas that are just so antithetical to the country, so antithetical to even logic. And they go all in with the blatant disinformation and the lies. And also, like, let's just distill it down, Jay. They're pretty weird people, right? Like,
they're the weirdest. They're the freaking weirdest, big bro.
It's pretty weird. I'll end this episode on this just bizarre Ron DeSantis story that was in a Washington Post article, just to show you. I wish we had this on tape. Maybe the tape will come out. This just shows you how socially inept Ron DeSantis is on the campaign trail and how he can't even do the most basic things, which is why he just needs to stick to his script of saying woke all the time. This is from a Washington Post article called DeSantis on the Trail, Combative with Critics, Not Yet Cozy with Voters. Here's what it says. Governor, I think there's a World War II veteran back there, an aide told DeSantis as the crowd swarmed. DeSantis gave a nod in the veteran's direction, flashed a thumbs up, thanked him for his service, and turned back to someone else waiting for a photo with him. The veteran would like a signature, nudged Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds a few weeks later. She passed along a piece of paper that read, reserved VIP. DeSantis scribbled his name and then walked off, looking for the next voter. Governor, did you want to know there's a World War II veteran? over there? Another person 30 seconds later asked DeSantis, smiled for as many photos as he could. I know, I signed something for him, DeSantis yelled back. He gave another thumbs up and hustled away. So he wouldn't even give a second to this World War II veteran who came to see him. And we had showed all these clips the other day of people saying, Mr. DeSantis, I drove 2 hours to see you. I would love to just shake your hand and say hi. And he just goes, okay, all right, see you later. I mean, this guy is absolutely flailing on the campaign trail, but that's what MAGA is. MAGA is weird, incompetent, fascism, autocracy, it's idiocracy. It's all that wrapped up in one big bow. But I am confident that if more people ended up seeing the clips that we showed you today, because that's the part of the problem too. It's being far too sanitized. And I've watched local news in Iowa. I've watched local news throughout the country. I seek out these clips. The way they present the news to folks, it makes it seem like this is all normal. But let me tell you something. This is not normal, which is why I think actually showing people these clips, showing people the flat earther clip and saying this isn't just a random person. This person is a Republican chair in Georgia, showing people Lauren Boebert missing the vote, showing people Ron DeSantis, showing people all of these various stories and then contrasting them with actually people who are at least trying, even when we disagree with them at times, or at least trying to do the good thing, or at least trying to keep the country working, or at least getting focused on jobs and the economy and issues that people care about. That to me is what is so important. That contrast is everything. And that's what we are here to show you every single day on this show. I had such a good time on this episode of the
MeidasTouch Podcast.
What
a blast.
What an absolute blast. It's been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this episode of the MeidasTouch Podcast. Hey, like we said before, if you want to help support the show, you can go in the description. We have the deals from all of our sponsors right there. Go check them out. It really goes a long way to support the show. And I will say that on Tuesday, we are scheduled for 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We are going to do a Zoom Q&A session on our Patreon for our patrons. So be sure to sign up on patreon.com/MeidasTouch. It's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. No matter what tier you sign up for, you'll be able to join us on that Patreon exclusive Zoom chat. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can, and we usually try to answer from everybody. So check it out. You can check out all of our merch at store.MeidasTouch.com. We got all of our Pride merch there. The Pride stuff specifically goes to help the Trevor Project, which is an incredible organization. The profits go to, portions of the profits to help youth, LGBT youth who are affected by people like Nikki Haley and Republicans and attack things like that. Trevor Project does honestly such incredible work for the LGBTQ community. Thank you, everybody. What an incredible show. Huge shout out to everybody watching. And I'm Jordan. Don't worry, I'm not going to take your line.
Don't take my line. Don't take my line. Hey, subscribe to the YouTube feed. Subscribe to the audio feed. We love you guys. Thank you for a great night. Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.
Standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song.
We've got pride. Do you? We're celebrating Pride Month with a brand new collection of tanks, V-necks, and more. Go to store.MeidasTouch.com right now and grab yours. Oh, and don't forget that koozie.